All right, we are back again for another podcast. This is the Big Hunt Guys podcast. We're in Las Vegas. I'm down here for the day. I got Chris Neville to my left. And today we are lucky enough to have a couple special guests from Phelps Game Calls. We have the one and only Dirk.
Oh, hey there.
Dirk and Cory. And I've not met you before, Cory. Cory, give us, what's your last name?
Paulsen.
Paulsen. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. We're happy to have you guys here. You just got in, huh?
Yeah.
Flights are good?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not too bad at all.
We put them right to work. They literally just stepped off the plane, walked in. We're like, hey, let's do a podcast.
Well, our original idea was to go right to the strip and bugle at drunk people.
Yeah.
But there's some legal stuff. There's all sorts of legal shit, I guess, on the strip to film.
You know, they're always running, with all these rules and regulations.
It's terrible.
I mean, do those folks that wear the hardly nothing and get their picture taken, do they have a permit? They got it.
I know,
Maybe.
they have to.
That's what I was telling Neville. That was what I was hoping for. I'm like, if we can get some of those to, bugle an out call, that'd be amazing.
Oh, it'd be so funny. You had to do it on Fremont Street. There's like a permit you have to get, and then do it on like Las Vegas Boulevard when you have someone in your video. You have to like sign a waiver and all this shit to make sure it's like publicly thing to like promote stuff.
Yeah.
Some guy dressed as a Roman soldier with an elk eagle. That'd been great.
The Transformer guy.
Oh, yes.
Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Is this a Hangover guy, like impersonator too?
Oh, yeah.
There's all
All
types.
the Spider-Man.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the baby.
A lot of naked people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You name it, they
Yeah.
got it down there.
So have you been to Vegas before, both of you?
I have.
Oh, yeah.
You've done Vegas upright?
We've been here. We were here already this year.
Yeah.
Trade show.
Second time this
Yeah.
year.
Did you do a shot show?
It was NABA
Okay.
buying group show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, it's good.
So you're familiar with Vegas and all the
Yeah.
good times?
Yeah. Fremont Street's my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, you don't have to walk and fight crowds as much. You just kind of mill around and try not to fall down. And it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Corey already won money at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
How much?
$60.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm at
This guy's
20
on
in
fire.
about a minute and a half.
Yeah, I did that on, I flew to Denver here not too long ago. Same thing. Just dropped a tenner in there and played it a few times. I think I won $86. So sometimes it pays.
Yeah. I was willing to donate $20 minimum.
The key is to cut it off at that point, right?
I had my limits.
Just be done. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Right on. You going out tonight? You do a little more gambling? Some blackjack?
I don't gamble.
No.
But I might.
I know him. I won't.
I'll tell my wife.
Very good. So give us a rundown real quick. You guys were nice enough to both. Are you full time with Phelps, Dirk? Or you-
Yeah, that's my full-time job.
Okay.
They call it work.
Right. Can't beat that, right?
Jason still doesn't know what I do, but he pays me every 2 weeks. So,
Cool. So give us a rundown on what you do there, both of you.
so I'm the marketing manager there, and then I do lots of other stuff. Content creation, editing videos. Sometimes some project management. Sometimes I work with John Gabriel on all of the artwork and our packaging. Just try to make sure we get the cool aesthetic look to all of our stuff. And then just every now and then, weird random stuff pops up. Hey, you want to do this? Sure.
Right.
So you never know.
Vegas?
Want to go to Vegas? Sure.
Yeah.
So kind of do a little bit of everything.
Right.
Are you in charge of all the memes on you guys' Instagram, Phelps Instagram?
Jason's pretty good on those.
Oh my god, those things crack me up so much.
Yeah, the ones lately, those are all the brainchild
Oh god,
of
those
Jason Phelps.
They're so hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, we look forward to those every year. I mean, you kind of seems like you start to ramp them up, rolling through the summer, early fall. But we love those memes.
Yeah.
The meme game is strong.
Yeah.
So strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do social media management there too.
Cool.
But Phelps, he'll jump in on that sometimes too. But which is tough lately. I mean, there's a weird algorithm going on Instagram right now that's just been
They don't like
kicking our
hunters.
ass.
They
So
don't like.
they hate us.
They hate us.
So
Or shadow ban.
yeah. I mean, when you have nearly 100,000 followers and some of the stuff gets 6,000 views,
Right.
and I'm like, wow.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
we're having the same exact problem. I think everyone in the industry's kind of seen that. Not good.
Yeah, I think they want to. Plus, I think they want you to boost your post. They want money.
Yeah, want to pay for it.
Yeah,
Pay to play.
but Facebook's the same for us. I mean, you get hardly any eyes on Facebook, whereas 6 years ago, it was huge.
Yeah,
Now it's nothing.
Interesting. Is that, so you do that? You do social media?
Yeah.
Okay. So have you learned a lot about that whole world?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, I've been doing like Instagram since 2012, I think.
Mhm.
It's back when it was super easy to get follows and like, you know, it grew organically really well. But man, I feel bad for anybody that's trying to start a new account now because, like you say, they're just shadow ban or whatever. You just can't get eyes on you, especially without paying.
We have to go back to the old fashioned knocking on doors, do mail,
Yeah.
all sorts of crazy shit.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, start
crazy.
calling.
Yeah.
Just bugle at people.
Yeah. Magazine ads, billboards,
Yeah.
sandwich boards.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would love to see the sandwich board. That'd be great.
Door to door.
So Cory, what do you do over at Phelps? You have this funnest job as Dirk over here, just making memes.
I wouldn't say, Dirk does a great job of making it sound a lot better. He does a lot of we work together on a lot of things. Official titles, I guess that matters sometimes. Business manager, basically just take care of anything that applies to our business from, we do have an in-house staff that builds all our calls, packaging. Then we have an operations team as well. So that's all the logistics, you know, since we do manufacturers, making sure products show up on time, you know, we're, paying attention to the bottom line, right? Making sure that we're not like overextending, which is a huge issue right now with just getting sourcing product, things like that. Also just the product development side, Dirk didn't bring that up, but he's a huge part of that too.
Yeah.
Somebody that knows kind of like the pulse of what's going on out there and how we can, you know, make things that are not necessarily just a Me Too call, but something that actually makes a difference, which has always been kind of a Phelps thing. You know, we've been really good about that from the beginning. So Dirk does that, but mostly it's just the operation side. You know, you got to have all the things that come together, right? You need to know like what does this call do and who's going to buy it. And how many stores can we get it in? And, you know, all the things that are really important as far as, you know, making good sales. So the sales side comes along with that. I know we all kind of wear that hat, but for the most part, you know, I'm beholden to hit some sales numbers, you know, on forecasts and things like that. It gets really nerdy, you know, like behind the scenes, but that's fun. I kind of have a background in that. And so we have a lot of fun, and that's, you guys, goHUNT's a great partner for us. So that's one of the reasons why we're here, is just everything we can do to help our really good partners and, you know, just really have a good messaging to our dealers, but also the end consumer. We were just talking to one of your customer service people, and just, you know, they get those calls. They have a hard time asking questions and new callers. Dirk does a great job of, you know, just really breaking it down so people can understand, but also then you can talk to people that need something a little bit more technical too.
That's why we invited you guys down, because Trill and I are terrible at calls. All right, we can do locator reviews.
We thought we'd do some content for our audience, but mostly just us. You know, it's mostly just an in-person, just an in-person tutorial. That's what we need right now.
Well, Dirk,
for sure.
Dirk can do that, you know. You've done it a few times, huh?
Once or twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a tad. So that's, I mean, I could go on and on, but yeah, basically anything that has to do with the business side. And there's a lot of it. And then with the Meat Eater also, we're one of the subsidiaries of Meat Eater.
Sure.
So there's just the overall business side, you know, being on with kind of how we run our social, you know, it's just kind of like the creative juices flow more than others at times, and Dirk can mention that, but like we have to kind of now put things in timelines, like, hey, we have product launches, and we're doing our best to follow along, and Dirk and I were together just making sure everybody sees that, because now we have, you know, bigger marketing.
You're growing up.
Yeah, a little bit. You can't just goof off as much. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's not the fun stuff that you know, hunting and the content that Dirk creates in the fall, but it definitely helps.
Do you guys build all your calls right there in-house? I mean, how does that work?
I mean, for the most part, yeah, we do. You know, some of the stuff is a little bit more technical, and we're really branching out on some of our new calls, especially in turkey. We have some really good turkey builders that have been doing it for years. So Jason has a really good understanding of what he does well, and make sure to bring in people that are, you know, have that same mindset, and they're the high attention to detail and want to make, you know, the right things. And then also you're not like trying to be disingenuous. You're like,
Sure.
these people know what they're doing. So for the most part, we source out some folks that do a lot of the call building, but it's Jason, has that same attention to detail.
Mhm.
I know we want to always say like the big bad, but I mean, even, Dirk, his wife helps build some of our calls for us too. Like
Nice.
she does a great job. And,
Very cool.
and so, just people that definitely know what they're doing and they can do well. And if Dirk's there, he can test them and make sure everything's coming out the way they are. And if the materials are off or whatever, he can be like, yep, throw that out. We're going with the good stuff.
I'm picturing that scene in The Elf, where the elf, he's testing toys.
Dirk tries every
Dirk
single one of
just
them.
tries
What's in the package? All right, ship it out. That one sounds good.
Those are the really good calls.
Maverick, good to go.
Yeah.
Packages.
Pink ones, yeah.
Pink-
I'll pick with those off the
Pink
floor.
to the side. How much do you guys see? I mean, Jason, does he still play? I mean, what role does he play now? I mean, I don't know how the transition, the sale, and how that all worked out, but what role does he play? Is he still there every
Go ahead,
day?
Dirk.
Yeah, well, so I work remote, so.
Okay.
But so Cory sees Jason every day.
Right.
And I think ever since this new transitions happened, Jason has a lot less hair.
Yeah.
I think he thought he was going to be on easy street,
Yeah.
but I think he's busier than ever. Whether it's working on new product concepts, he's always heading out the R&D on all these new ideas. He has a podcast of his own now, Cutting the Distance.
That's right.
So, he's always
He's busy.
grinding on that, getting, new hosts, or not hosts, but guests on there. And then, you have to know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of
Sure.
work that goes into that. And then just overall, organization communication with the mothership and
Yep.
and then with us. And that guy, he's busy as
Yeah.
ever. So.
Yeah, every time I've ever had a chance to talk to him, it seems like he's just in between. He's running from one agenda to the next, one meeting to the next. Seems like a busy dude. Nice guy.
But he also, he'll dive in and talk to people on social too.
Yeah.
People will send questions and he jumps in. We try to separate him, but he doesn't pay attention. Right?
Yeah, he actually does respond a lot on social media, like on Instagram or whatever. Somebody sends us a DM, then he's usually the guy that'll answer a lot of times. Because there's a lot of people. He has a lot of people he's already developed a rapport with over all the years. So they ask very specific questions. Hey, Jason, remember that time you were telling me about that elk
Yeah.
unit, yada yada, and I have another couple more questions. And
He's like, nope, don't remember that.
I can't answer that stuff, so I just leave it unread for him. So.
Come on, Jason, hit us up. So, what do you guys have for new calls this year that you guys are excited about?
So we're kind of doing a relaunch of our metal bugle tube.
Yeah, we had questions about that today.
Yeah, we did kind of a soft launch last year just because we didn't have all the inventory we'd like to make it go like huge through the roof. Which was a super successful launch. We sold just about every single one we got built last year. So this year we got more inventory units in stock, and we're going big again on that. So the metal bugle tube, it kind of sounds like a metal bugle tube.
That's what we were just.
It's like a missile.
Yeah, we were literally just walking through the warehouse today and picked one up, and we were like, metal bugle tube. And I mean, I was aware of them last year. I haven't had a chance to use one yet, but by most account, everybody I've talked to loves them. But what's the story behind it?
So we have this buddy, Abram Summerfield. He's an engineer. I actually used to work with Abram in my old life at Night Force Optics, and Abram, in his personal calling, was always struggling to hit that super high pitched ringing note you get on your bugle. That seems like elk really respond to that. So he messed around a lot with different this and that, and so he made this prototype out of metal. He brought it over to my house. He's like, "Hey, I want you to look at this," and I'm like, a metal tube, that kind of seems kind of weird. But when I bugled on it, I was like, geez Louise, about to blow the windows out of the house. It just hits that super high-pitched note, and it just about makes you go deaf. It's very ringing, very, very loud.
Is that just from the materials itself, just being metal? It's not a different shape or anything, is it?
The shape is a little bit different, but nothing out of the ordinary. It doesn't look
Still a
too
bugle tube.
different. Yeah, it's still a bugle tube. But just the materials, it doesn't vibrate as much, so you're sending out more sound waves out the end of it, I guess. But it hits a certain hertz I don't know, all the dirt talk. Jason could probably tell you, I know Abram could, but there's a certain curves that this thing allows you to hit with much ease, with a lot more ease than did before with a plastic tube. And Jason and I had been working on an external diaphragm elk call mouthpiece thing for quite a while, for a couple, 3 years. And we were just getting that wrapped up and like, hey, we should couple that with the metal tube. And I'd been messing around with it. I was like, yeah, it works really good with that metal tube. So we worked hard, got everything to made up and go. And the external bugle, it's called the Easy Bugler.
So you don't have to have a mouth reed, right? It's an external.
It's built in, yeah. It's got a mouth reed built in. Basically, the guts out of your normal amp diaphragm, without the tape, it snaps into place. And then when you blow it, you play it with your lip, your lower lip, and then you blow on it, and you can make bugles, chuckles, grunts. You can even do lip balls on it. That's that really nasty, gravelly type sound bugle. But it's been a game changer for a lot of people. This one guy sent us an email to our customer service last year. It said he'd enjoyed elk hunting his whole life. He got tongue cancer and had to have his tongue removed. And he couldn't use a diaphragm anymore. And he wasn't satisfied with the other external bugles on the market. And he's like, well, I'll give this one a try. Got it, loved it, called in a bowl for his dad. Just like, man, I can live again. I can live again now. So
That's cool.
that was really what we were after with that Easy Bugler mouthpiece. It's just like we're trying to fix a problem, something that's going to sound good, be authentic, and easy to use. And I think we hit a home run with it.
We get that question a lot, like what options are available if you can't use a mouth reed? Because it just seems like some people either, myself included, sometimes I'm just too lazy to try. I'm sure I could do it if I put a lot more, and I could do it, but I just can't do it to, to the level that other people can. But, we get asked that a lot, like what's available out there. So it's cool that there's an option for those of us that either too lazy or just can't use a mouth reed.
I do a lot of elk calling education throughout the year, and like 2 guys out of 10 will have a palate that's just too darn narrow to use a normal diaphragm. And then you get some that just they put a diaphragm in their mouth and immediately they start gagging. They cannot handle the diaphragm.
Have you gotten peeped on before?
Almost. And so this is, it's a fix for that, or the guys that are just like, I don't really want to, put in the effort. You gotta, and I will say with this Easy Bugler, you gotta put in work with it, but the learning curve is way better than with a normal diaphragm. So
cool, very cool. Any cow calls? You guys? I use your external cow call a lot. That little easy estrus. That's like probably one of my very favorite calls of all time. I mean, I'll never go out in the elk woods without one of those.
Yeah, those things are really
anything
nice.
else in that realm? External cow calls.
I mean, just to button up the Easy Bugler, you can swap out that mouthpiece and just put a flared one, and you can just use diaphragms with it as well. So
On that metal tube.
on the metal tube, yeah. So that's another great feature of that.
Well, we have the mini. We have this mini amp too. So our normal amp diaphragm, has a kind of a metal dome on top of it. So we shrunk that whole diaphragm. We shrunk the tape. We shrunk the frame. It's tiny. So for again those folks who have the narrow palate, or maybe kids and ladies, they can put it in there without having to cut it down.
Cool.
You can cut down a regular diaphragm, but you still have that same size frame. And if you've got a small mouth, then it still doesn't fit that good. So that new mini amp is a huge hit for those folks too. So
I don't know. I mean, I've known you, Dirk, for a while, kind of loosely. I don't know you super well, Cory. This is the first time we've met, but I mean, what's your history in elk hunting? Like, how did you did you grow up in elk country? Did you always hunt elk? And especially, like specifically, I guess, how did you get involved in calling elk?
So when I was a kid, I wanted to go hunt everything. I wanted to kill everything that.
Where'd you grow up?
Idaho, north central Idaho.
Okay.
This little town called Weippe.
Okay.
And it's where Lewis and Clark met the Nez Perce Indians. Excuse me? Whippy? Okay, here goes all the jokes. Right? Being from Weippe, you take a lot of flack. There's a lot of funny little jokes that go with it. Small town rivalries and stuff. Especially that, and it's a funny name. But that's the town where Lewis and Clark met the Nez Perce Indians and were saved. You know, they came across the Bitterroot Mountains, nearly starved to death. They had to eat their saddles, ate their dogs, ate the horses. They were on death's door when they landed there by Weeye and come out of the mountains. And the Indians, they seen them and they were like, should we kill him? Should we help him?
Should we save him?
And they kind of, it was funny, you read an excerpt from like the journal that said they described them as having fish eye, the white men, having fish eyes and upside down faces because they had beards and like blue eyes.
Yeah, right.
So they'd never seen people like
Yeah,
that before. But this lady who was in the tribe or was living with the tribe, Sacagawea, she had seen them, white men before, and she's like, no, they're good, because she'd been rescued from another rival tribe or something by some white folks. And she said, no, don't kill them, they're good. And so they're like, okay. So they saved them and helped them build boats and get back on their feet and sent them down towards the Columbia River, right? Cool. But anyway, that's where I grew up, right there. And it's elk country, right? Sure. At one time, that part of Idaho, the elk herd would probably rival anywhere in the United States. It was that good. Today, not so good. Ever since, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but
you've hunted it out.
He's called them all in.
I tagged them all.
There's none left.
It's my fault.
Yeah, Dirk got them all.
Way to go.
So, since wolves have been around, it's kind of gone downhill. But anyway, I've hunted deer, everything, and I wanted to shoot a bear. And I've been seeing these bear tracks around a pond, and I was 14 years old, and asked my dad, I said, hey, drop me off at this pond, opening day of bear season. And I'm going to go out there and sit and wait September 1st, wait for this bear to come in right at the crack of dawn. He's got to be coming in there to get a drink. Okay, so the dad gets me about a mile from that pond, drops me off. So I walk in the dark, sit out next to this tree in the dark, wait. Just as the sun starts breaking, hear a bunch of popping and cracking. I'm like, oh man, here we go. Here comes that bear. I'm ready with my rifle.
How old were you?
14.
Okay.
14. And I'm waiting, and out walks elk.
Uh,
Much to my chagrin and surprise. I'm like, what? Elk? What? I totally expected a bear.
Yeah, bummed out.
Yeah, which is funny because today Dirk would be like, there's no way you're going to kill a bear there. Doing that, right? But anyway, so these elk come out and get in the pond. There's just a little ragged-horn bowl, and they get in the pond, splash around, drink, and mess around. They're like 20 yards away. And then they walk off. And all I can think is, it's opening day of bow season, too.
Oh,
if I had a bow, I could kill one of those things. Well, I had a bow, but I didn't have no arrows with broadheads. So my dad, he comes and picks me up around noon. I'm like, okay, you got to take me to town. We're going to buy arrows. You got to have broadheads. He's like, what are you talking about? So I tell him, he's like, you can't kill an elk with a bow and arrow. I'm like, yes, you can. I've seen people do it. I've seen pictures. And he's like, you can't kill an elk with a bow and arrow. I'm like, yes, you can.
Did your dad hunt?
He did.
He did, okay.
But not with a bow, rifle.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, I am damn bow hunters. He was one of those guys. So I didn't get a bow that year. And I was so mad about it. So the following summer, I worked for farmers putting up hay, doing all sorts of, any kind of work I could get to do, I would do it so I could buy a bow. So I bought a bow, bought all the arrows, bought the camo, everything. Bought the calls. And back then, of course, there's no internet.
Sure.
He had books, and he had some VHS tapes. So Larry Jones and those kind of guys, they were popular. I had this teacher at school gave me a VHS video with like 7 hours of elk hunting. So I watched that all the time. Got me some calls. I'm blowing it. At this point in my life, I'd never even heard an elk bugle before.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing what they're doing on the videos. I'm like, okay, it kind of sounds the same. And that fall, my dad's like, you're pretty serious about this. I'm like, I'm killing an elk.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, well, if you kill a bull elk with that bow, I'll give you all your money back you spent for all that stuff. Knowing it was going to be a safe bet. Like,
you won't kill one.
So on the third day of season, I didn't even have a driver's license yet. had my mom drive me out. And
Thanks, Mom.
yeah, I seen some elk over in this field. I'm like, all right, keep going. Pull up here on the hill, and all right, you stay here, Mom. I'm gonna go over and call this bull in and shoot it. She's like, okay. You know, this is mindset. You know, the chances are gonna be
Sure.
really.
Right.
So I get over there, start calling this bull in, and he's just loving the call, just eating him up. Pretty soon, here he comes.
Be you cow calling or bugling?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Well,
What
like
were the calls? Do you remember what calls they were?
What kind?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were built by Lohman.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think they're in business anymore. Lohman, Lohman.
Were they similar to like what we have nowadays?
Yeah, it was just a diaphragm, a flat frame, didn't have the little dome or
Right.
anything. And then the tube was like a vacuum cleaner hose,
Yep.
but it had like a little wooden dowel
Mhm.
with a hole drilled in it. And man, I love that thing. It sounded really good. In fact, my cousin has one of those. I'm like, hey man, can I get one of those? He's like, no, I got it from my grandpa. I'm like, I'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it's grandpa's.
A few years ago, when I was hunting in Wyoming, we found one just out
Oh.
in the woods. Somebody left, just like you're saying, wooden dowel at the end, looked just like a vacuum cleaner hose. So,
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them floating around.
Yeah, love that thing.
It's interesting. You had total like you just went out as a 13-year-old kid, you saw some elk, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go call at them.
Yeah.
Did you know what to do? I mean, based on what you
Well,
watched at the
from what I
VHS?
watched,
Okay.
yeah. And this was the third day of season, so day one and day two, I'd already had a little bit of experience, like
Mhm.
interacting with the elk and kind of seeing what was working and what didn't. So in my mind, I basically thought, okay, what would an elk do? I'm going to role play as an elk
Yeah.
and behave like an elk. Okay, they kind of bugle back and forth. They get really close and fight. Well, I need to do the same thing. I need to get him talking, get really close and try to fight him. And then when he comes out, I'll shoot and work like a charm. He walked right in like 15 yards.
You shot him
Waylaid him.
as a 13-year-old.
I was 15.
Oh, 15
Yeah,
at that time. Okay.
15.
That was your first bull. with a
First
bow.
bull, yeah.
Wow.
Nice. It's crazy.
And
What was it?
a nice 5x6.
Nice 5x6.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I shot him, listened to him run off. Okay, I gotta go tell my mom.
Yeah.
So she wasn't too far away. She was probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards down the road. I said, did you hear that? She's like, yeah, I heard some bugling. I'm like, she said, I couldn't tell the difference between you or the elk. I don't know if she was being nice or not. Probably was. But anyway, I'm like, Mom, I killed it. So she went back to town, got my dad. And where this thing died, it was flat as pancake and some old log and skid trails and stuff around there. And she's like, I said, yeah, just get the pick. We'll just use the come along and load this thing up. So she goes back home. We hadn't been gone long, probably an hour. And she goes, hey, get your come along and your $500. And he's like, what? Yeah, get your come along and $500. Kill the bull. Yeah, he's like, what? No, no way.
So all that just from that first encounter where you were hunting bears and
Yeah.
and sitting there and saw some elk come in.
Yep.
It just lit a fire in you.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, that's cool. You could call things in with it. You know,
Yeah.
call elk in, they bugle back, and it's like the coolest thing I've ever done. So
Did you have friends that were hunting that were doing that kind of thing too?
I
or were you
did.
kind of doing it on your own?
my best friend at the time, which is my brother-in-law now,
Okay.
but him and I did this together. Well, he couldn't go that day because he got grounded for mouthing off to his old man or something. So he couldn't go that day. And so he was so pissed that he
Yeah.
didn't get to go on the day I shot one. So
Did you feel like the calling came naturally to you, or did you like have to practice a shit ton?
I practiced a lot, but I felt like I was kind of naturally good at it.
Because it feels like I have buddies, like they'll put one in,
Yeah.
like have never done it before, and they're just like, I'm like, damn, like it just comes natural to them to like make calls and make sounds like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I see that a lot, you know, like I say, teaching those different folks throughout the year how to use the calls. And there's some guys that just like, bam, they pick it right up. And other people, it's like, you know, they can't really do anything with their tongue. So
Yeah.
it's just weird. And they're like so frustrating, you know, to them.
Oh, yeah,
themselves.
for sure.
Like, why won't my tongue work right?
That's trail in there. I'm like, Trail, you sound like shit today. I'm calling. You better wake up.
Get some nice buddies over.
Cal call. I'd be like, I'm trying.
Right?
That's why the easy estrus is so great. I can
Yeah.
always make that thing work.
For sure.
60% of the time, it
Oh,
works every time.
Yeah, for sure. So you just kept elk hunting after that?
Yeah.
Just kept going?
Yep.
You got into competitive elk calling
Yep.
at some point?
Yep. Had a buddy who he wanted me to go. He's like, see, him and his family, they were really big into it. And he's like, hey, you should go. I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, you should go. It's fun. I'm like, all right. So I went. And I competed a few, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then I won a world title, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation calling contest. And after that, I won a few more. But I really wasn't really looking for the accolades.
Sure.
I was kind of looking for the cool prizes because, they always have
Right.
like a new bolt scope or
Yeah.
whatever, a new bow or all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, I'd like to have those prizes. So that was kind of
Yeah.
For those
my motivation
tournaments, were
was.
you like practicing? Like,
That's what I was just gonna ask.
are you like,
This is
all
the
right,
one
today-
question I've been dying
Today I
to
got to
ask.
make these sounds. Like, was there like a routine that you were doing?
Yeah, so you would do your routine. Back then, it was all freestyle. So they said they'd give you a minute to make as many bugles as you want and a minute to do as many cow calls as you want. And then I think they shrunk it down to like 30 seconds for cow calls, but a minute for bull calls. But now it's completely structured way different. They say, give us a lip ball bugle, and then every contestant has to make that same bugle. And then you do have a little bit of freestyle time to do whatever you want to showcase your talent. But yeah, practicing beforehand, I practiced a lot before I'd go. Probably the month before I get the calls out and start practicing. Back then, you didn't have cell phones or nothing to record yourself.
Yeah.
So get out the VHS recorder.
Way back then, huh?
Well, I think it was like the little small cassette. But the height, stand in front of it, bugle, and then play it back. And like, oh man, that sucks. Or why am I doing it like that? But that was really good. And that's one tip I always give folks is, man, if you're kind of struggling, you should always record yourself, because a lot of times seeing what you're doing with your face as you're calling, you can really change the calling. It's like, oh man, why am I doing this weird thing with my lips or my jaw or whatever? And you start cleaning up those facial expressions of your call, and it'll make a huge amount of difference. So
Yeah, that's one question I've been dying to ask. So, I want to hear about you, Cory, too, just kind of your involvement in elk hunting. I wanted to ask Dirk, is how much time do you recommend people practice? I mean, how much time do you practice? Do you still practice? Like leading up to elk season this summer, do you still practice?
I don't practice anymore, but I do blow calls throughout the year because we're always working on new projects, new calls and stuff. It's like, oh, test this, test that. But as far as like bona fide practicing, I don't really do it. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. I've got to that point. It's like, yeah, I know right where to put it in and how hard to blow and stuff now. But for new people or people who want to improve, I recommend practice every day. But you don't have to invest an hour every day. On your commute to work, 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. Maybe you don't want to practice in the car. As soon as you come home, walk in the garage, grab your calls before you go in the house and make the rest of the family mad, stir everything up.
The morning's good too.
Yeah, that's a really great time.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Do you find it helpful when people practice, do you find it helpful to listen to like a CD or?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, what are you measuring your good?
Yeah, your practice on.
Your
That's what I'm
sound.
saying. Because I can sit in my vehicle and I can make elk noises and I can be like, "Yeah, I am so damn good. I am really coming of age." But then, it may not be,
Right.
good. How do you deal with that? I mean, what would you recommend?
A lot of people will watch YouTube videos, right? And I always tell them, like, okay, well, you can watch your favorite YouTube caller, or there's a lot of just elk videos of elk being elk in like different national parks and stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, listen to that, watch that. It's hard to watch that when you're driving down the road, but you can push play and then start driving and you listen to the noise. But what I recommend is you hear when the bull bugles, you bugle and you try to replicate exactly what he's doing. And man, it'll help you with your game. As a kid, I had watching videos and then trying to copycat what the videos were doing. That helped a lot. But I will say, and until I actually called to real elk, I'm like, I always thought, there's something missing here. And then I called to real elk. I'm like, oh man, I can actually hear it, like what I'm not, the noises I'm not making. So then I worked during season, trying to kind of catch up and make those same sounds. And I think that was pretty helpful for me to grow in my calling ability.
Cool.
Phelps Spotify channel. just elk calls.
Just
elk.
Yeah.
Oh,
calls.
yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
That'd
Just
be nice.
Write it down.
all the time.
Just listen to elk sounds the whole way to your trip.
There's those nuggets that
Yes.
just come out in the podcast.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, fun. Listen.
So Cory, you elk hunter?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How long? I mean, you grow up elk
I didn't
hunting?
have such a super sweet story that Dirk had, but I think it's mine's like really similar to almost everybody's, right? You kind of hunting, and then you realize that it's as hard as archery is, that it's easier in September, and you go from that rifle progression. I rifle hunted with my dad. And Washington doesn't have the longest season for rifles, so opportunities are pretty small. Access land, and then I think we were better campers than we were hunters, growing up and having a good time and just getting the family out and doing those sort of things. But I just I had an older brother that got into the archery thing and had success, and it's like when people that have success, you're like, okay, I can do this too. And then the competitive brother, pushing each other, in a really good way. And so just started off that way and really wanted to get into the calling. I mean, I think we can all relate to the Primos videos and how that all comes together and seeing that kind of that perfect elk scenario, right? I mean, we think we've all been in those moments, whether it happened or not, but just being around them and close and interacting is so, I don't know, that's a kind of like an accomplishment in a day. Some days I'll come back and man, I had the best day hunting, nothing died though, and it was still super fun. And you just want to, I don't know, Dirk and I both want everybody to have those experiences and knowing, elaborate on, watching elk make sounds. Like there's really no such thing as a perfect sound. I mean, I've heard some really weird sounds and just I think you just got to try, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, you could do everything right and it still could fail. And just trying to explain to somebody, you all right? Speaking of failure.
Man down.
You broke the chair.
Oh no.
Watch out. Who's next?
When you said you've heard some really weird sounds, I was going to say I have too. You hunt with that whole.
Oh, there you
there's some
go.
Weird shit going on.
This yelling at bulls.
What is that?
What in the hell?
Yeah, no, I think that all those things matter. Just getting out there and trying, and you'll never know what it is. And then Dirk, that other element too. If you do get lucky enough to be around elk, just mimicking them. That's just a simple way to go. And if you can, train yourself to be able to duplicate those, you're going to be in really good opportunity to make something happen. And there's no 100% guarantees. We talk about that a lot. A lot of guys think that there is a like a linear path, like it's just like do X. This is a result that's going to happen. And we don't necessarily talk like that when people call us. And we sell products. We also sell like tactics and how to get to that point. And we just hired a customer service person, and that's going to be part of our training, right? Is like, hey, when someone calls, like you're not necessarily, you got to like listen to what they're asking for, but also, give them some insight as to like how to make it work, whether it's a setup or, a scenario in your head that you can, go and what, not necessarily if they're talking to you, like an elk is saying exactly what they're meaning, but you can get an idea and then make a good assumptions of what to say next and working through those progressions. So as far as me personally, I mean, I've had some success, early on. I didn't kill like a nice branch antler bull until 2012. But I had a lot of like opportunities, that, I killed a lot of cows. That's one thing that I explain to a lot of guys too, is like, you just, get out there and try and just notch your tag,
for sure.
Being used to being close to elk. That's such a simple thing, like, and it's really hard because everybody sees the success, right? I mean, you can relate to that. They expect you to have instant success, or to kill, it's got to be big or whatever, or it's a failure. But that's not really how it all works. In general, not everybody kills a 5x6 when they're 15. Let's just be honest.
I'm lucky. I'm more lucky than
You're supposed to
good.
say, yeah.
That's why he's in Vegas.
In that regard, I mean, I think some of the funnest hunting, I grew up in Utah, and really the only opportunity we had for elk on the regular is it's an either sex, spike or cow.
Yeah, spike hunts. Yeah.
And reality is those are some of the funnest hunts I've been on.
Absolutely.
Because when you're out there, there's no pressure. I don't have to call in the herd bull. I'm not trying to size anything up. Any cow or spike that comes in's getting it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a ton of fun. So I love that type
It's
of
probably on those hunts too. You're learning just as much you're, if not more, on like
Yeah, you
elk
are.
behavior and what elk are doing, then you can take that.
Yeah,
Into a
pile a
different
few up.
right?
Yeah, before
For
you
sure.
dive right in.
Yeah, we have really limited opportunities in Washington. You know, our archery hunt in September is only 13 days. So there's not a lot, and it can be like in a weird spot of the month, not always the best 13 days, and then weather and other hunters and things like that. So it really cuts that time down quite a bit. But just hunting stories, probably like one of the best stories was when my wife got her bull. And there's nothing like that, hunting, number one, hunting with a spouse, and two, having it be successful, is pretty awesome. I mean, I think there's always the bigger stories, and we've seen some pretty awesome mounts here. But at the same time, like those little ones really like burn a hole, and especially somebody's first. There's only one first, and being part of that, and we called in this smallest raghorn 3x4 you've ever seen in your life. But legal bull in Western Washington, nonetheless. And I just got to be a spectator, and I think I cow called like 1,000 times. I mean, it just seemed to work, so I kept doing it, and didn't have a game plan going into that. But she, was ice cold, and he got within so close of us, you could hear him chewing. And it was one of those moments that you just, I could have tried to shoot it myself, but this wasn't going to happen that day. It was her hunt, and she did everything right, and I heard her first bull. And the best part about that was the day before I took her on this like death march, like those ones that like I didn't even want to be there, but we were there, and she voiced her opinion of how bad of a decision that was. But we found the elk right after that, and then came in the next day, and she ended up getting that bull. So
awesome.
It puts into perspective of what elk hunting really is, and most of the time it sucks, and then there's those little moments that pay off, and we talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I've always said that. I mean, you're out bow hunting, you just never think like this is impossible. You have day after day after day, maybe you're backpack hunting. I've done it with Neville, and I just think this is impossible. This thing we were trying to do is not going to happen. And then you get the right bull in the right moment, and it just clicks. It's that quick, and it happens.
Just being there.
Yeah, there's real magic in that. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Just a little bit of the background, but not the same as Dirk. But his experience, we all get to kind of learn from. Right. Those scenarios that happen all the time. He hasn't really given me like expert lessons yet. We're still trying to figure that out.
What's your playbook?
No.
We need the playbook.
The playbook.
Yeah. Playbook.
How'd it go this last year?
Can you actually understand what elk are saying? Like, oh yeah, this guy, this elk one, he's thinking this, or he's saying this right now.
No, not really. But I when they maybe call a certain way, I kind of play off the temperature or the attitude of the bull, and when they start making some certain type of calls, I don't know what they're saying, but they're mad. They sound super mad. It's like, okay, this is going to happen. This is good. Keep doing that to make sure he stays mad, right? But yeah, there's lots of different takes on elk hunting and what elk are saying and stuff. And some guys, they got it down to like, well, he's saying this or saying that. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I just play a little bit different. I kind of just call it the attitude of the elk and kind of play it from there.
So what's your strategy? Let's say you're just going out, haven't heard any elk yet. Do you have like, all right, I'm going to do this. You doing the same thing till you hear an elk?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cover ground.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of ground. And if I spend a day in a drainage and there's no bugles, I don't go back there. Now, if there's a bunch of fresh sign and they're not talking, I might go back there, but only after I've already checked out plan B, plan C, and so on and so forth. So I try not to hunt the same ground twice in 2 days in a row, unless, let's say, I did find a ton of elk in there, and it's like, man, it was a melee in there yesterday. We didn't blow it up. Let's go back. Mm-hmm. I'll definitely go back in there. But so I'm not a big like bivvy style hunter. I like to do day trips because that way I don't overcommit. Check out the area, hunt it. If it's great, I'll stick around. If not, I'm on to the next spot. And I think sometimes people get kind of caught in that rut of like, man, they love this spot. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. There's got to be elk here. There's tracks. They're going to talk one of these days, and it's really easy to burn 3 days in a spot where you're never going to hear an elk bugle.
Boy, howdy, don't I know that?
Yeah.
You just described my last season. In hunted Idaho, same thing. Found some bulls, good bulls hanging out together. And, I just kept thinking, oh, they're going to get going. They're going to get going. They're going to get going. Just never did. I mean, I hunted them, I kind of ended up trying to hunt them like a mule deer, hoping they'd feed out into a meadow that I was sitting on, or they just never got going. So, I know other parts of the unit, same unit I was hunting, there were bulls that were blowing up with cows. So
Yeah.
good advice.
It's weird. You can drive 50 miles and it's chaos.
Yep.
But right where you're at, it's just ghost town.
Yeah. I was seeing, I saw a bull. It's probably a 300-inch 6-point hanging out with a real nice mature 5x6. Just the two of them on September 22nd. Just
Weird.
Just the two of them hanging out together. And I was seeing a few cows here and there, and I just kept thinking, surely one of those cows will cycle, and they'll get rolling, but they never did. But just like you're saying, I probably hunted there 5 days, 6 days, just trying to hoping it would work. So I get that for sure.
So you go into these spots, are you just locator bugling then?
So, for instance, I'll go to as I'm hiking the terrain, I'm like, okay, I'm going to call it here. So I'll do kind of just like a long, high-pitched locator bugle. But before I do that, I'll cow call a little bit. 2 or 3 cow calls, super quiet, just in case there's a bull like super close. And then I'll do 2 or 3 more a little louder. That way it gets it way out there. If I don't hear nothing after a couple, 3 minutes, then I'll rip a big bugle. Let that sit 2 or 3 minutes, a couple more cow calls, wait. Then I rip a bigger bugle, like a big full bugle with maybe 3 or 4 chuckles or grunts on the end. And then I kind of wait and listen. And a few more cow calls, wait and listen. And then before I walk again, I'll do this big, nasty lip ball, just the nastiest sounding lip ball and a bunch of grunts afterwards. It just sounds like Godzilla just broke through it.
Yep.
And I'm waiting for that. And sometimes I won't hear nothing. But sometimes that last one's what gets it for whatever reason. It may be a 5-point. There's a lot of people say, oh, never try to bugle like a big bull because you'll scare them away.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome.
I was just telling you that. We're sitting here talking. I was like, Trail, do you think we bugle too angry? Like we just got like big bulls and everyone's
That
too
was like
scared.
me, definitely not. You do seem pretty angry. Maybe you do bugle too angry.
Like if I did that big nasty bugle right here, you'd be like, oh, wow, dude, tone it down. You're going to scare the hell out of everything. But if you walk over there 100 yards, it's not that big and nasty compared to what a real elk is. Like, a real pissed off 5-point sounds much bigger. So anyway, if I don't hear nothing after those three bugles, and I'll give this 5-10 minutes in one spot. If I don't hear nothing, I'm on to the next spot. Now I may walk a quarter mile. I may walk 200 yards depending on terrain features, right?
Yep.
If I'm up on top of a ridge, which is where I'd like to be, I may, especially if it's a narrow ridge, I'll bugle both sides. I'll kind of zigzag my way back and forth, side to side, pitching down into each little crevasse, every little draw, every little backside of a ridge, because your bugles won't travel across and behind ridges very well.
Mhm.
If they do hear you, you may not be able to hear them. So by just picking apart your terrain, it's like, well, it doesn't make sense to bugle again until, a quarter mile. I can see I've covered everything right here. But the next little terrain feature I want to bugle into is a quarter mile away, or maybe, like I say, 200 yards. So I may wag 100 yards, 200 yards, and call again. I've had it where I couldn't hear a bull bugle unless I was standing in this exact spot. If I went 50 yards that way, I couldn't hear him. If I went, just got lucky to stand there and I heard it. And then when I went off down after him, I couldn't hear him again. And my buddy stayed up, and I hiked back out. He's like, "Did you get him?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I heard you bugling, and you and him bugling back and forth the whole time." I said, "I didn't hear him once."
Wow.
So
Interesting.
terrain features are really weird.
Yeah.
And I kind of picked this up too last year when we were hound hunting for bears.
Mhm.
So we got GPS collars on these hounds, right? You turn them loose, and of course they're barking like
going.
crazy. And pretty soon you can't hear them. It's like, those things are 200 yards away right now.
Right.
Yeah, they're not that far, but all of a sudden they're gone. Like you can't hear them barking anymore. And that note carries a long ways. Elk bugle probably carries a little better, of course. But so I think a lot of people get frustrated when they're trying to locate elk. they'll go out there and like, I don't know if I'm real confident with my calling, and they'll do some calling. They don't hear anything. Like, shoot, I must suck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it away, just hike around glass or whatever. But you have to really trust the process. And even for me, I'm a proficient caller, but I may call all day long. We may put in a 10, 12 mile loop hiking and not hear a single elk all day. That's not uncommon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every day is not like what you see on YouTube. We crunch it down into
That's the highlights.
a highlight reel to where you can just kind of see what happened, kind of. But there's a lot of dead time and a lot of frustration. You'll go 2 or 3 days sometimes without hearing a bull. But when you're in them, it can be really good. And sometimes you call them in, and sometimes you don't. I get a lot of guys. They say, I'll give you a scenario. The elk did this, I did that. Man, what should I have done different? And every scenario is so different. I've had some very similar ones happen, over the years. I'm like, I did the one thing one time and it worked, and the next time I was like, oh, this is like that one other time. And I did the one thing and nothing, it didn't really work. You just never know, because the animal's got its own free will and its own disposition, and already probably has a plan for the day. I'm gonna follow these cows up on the hill, lay down, take a nap, and then go eat again tonight. And you're just trying to break your way into that, pull him away. So he may not be game for it, or man, he may be super defensive. You just never know.
So if you hear a bull, let's say you hear a bull bugle off, he's off in the distance, is the initial reaction kind of head towards that bull, get the wind in your favor, and just head that direction?
I try to get at least 3 really good bugles out of him, pinpoint.
Okay.
And also, I feel like if bull bugles at least 3 times really good, then shows enough interest where if I walk all the way over there, he's not just going to clam up on me when I get there.
Are you calling to him the whole way? Like,
No.
You head towards him, or you shut up?
As soon as I get him made, I'll shut up and I'll just beat feet over there until I get. I'll look at my mapping device on my phone and be like, okay, satellite imagery. Oh, there's a little glade over there. Sounds like he's by it. There's some dark timber. I think he's in that little knoll. I'll look at the satellite imagery and also look at the topo layer. It's like, oh, yep, there's a little terrain feature there. I'll bet he's right there. I'll make a mark and then just head that way. And then when I get close, like 200 yards or less, preferably even like 100 yards, when I start getting close enough, you start feeling like, I think I'm going to jump in. I better just stop.
Right.
Then I'll stop. And then I'll start looking for shooting lanes, really, really, I'll be assessing the wind the whole way there, but I'll really start assessing the wind, trying to figure out where I'm going to set up on this. And then I'll start making a call. Before I ever make a call, I want to make sure I'm standing in the right spot in case he just comes boiling in. Then I'll be prepared. I'll be concealed enough to where I won't just get busted. I don't want to stand in front of that glade, right in the middle of that glade. I don't want to have some cover behind me. But so once everything's good, then I'll start calling real quietly. Those couple of quiet cow calls again, and a little bit louder. But I really want to have him vocalize first before I bugle at him. I want him to bugle to these cow calls.
I think one of the issues I have consistently is I'll hear a bull bugle, or I'll bugle to a bull will bugle back. I'll get a few going. It's just like you. I'm thinking, I found out where I think he's at. I'm going to head that direction. During that trip from point A to point B to where I think I need to get set up, I fall in love with the idea of hearing that bull bugle again.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, I just want to hear him bugle one more time. If I can just hear him bugle, I'll know exactly where he's at. So like I'll keep calling. And I think sometimes I push elk away potentially, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're thinking, but I fall in love with that. Like, oh, I'm going to bugle again. I just want to hear it, And it seems like a lot of the times in that scenario, unless the bull's really fired up, he'll just dummy up. Like he'll just shut up.
Yep.
And I'll never hear it again. So it's interesting to know. I mean, I guess you have to exercise some self-control, right? Like get to a point to where you actually think you're in a position to, maybe make a play on that bull.
Yep, definitely. And I've done that before a lot, and especially in my earlier days, like bugle my whole way there.
Yeah, that's me.
Every time he'd answer, I'm just trucking over there. He'd answer, I'd answer.
Yeah.
And then once I get to that certain point, he'll either clam up or the next time you hear him, he's on the next ridge.
Yeah.
And then you get close, and then he's on the next ridge, and then you got a foot race. And a lot of times, especially when I was a young buck, it's like, all right, cool, we're going to do this. So you just keep on going, and eventually, if you can push them far enough and hard enough, a lot of times they'll stop and want to fight and call them in. But it's a lot easier to just shut up, get close, like 100 yards if you can, and then start in slow and just get him to come to vocalize. And at that point, especially, I'm really hoping he's in his bedding area at this point, right? I'm hoping that he's done moving for the day. It's not like 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm hoping it's like middle of the day to 12 o'clock. I call it midday madness. Right?
Sure.
Those bulls have been laying around. He's ready to get up. He's ready. He's got one thing on his mind. He's checking his ladies, and then you get close. It's almost like kind of like I always say. It's kind of like if you got a crackhead on the sidewalk outside your house, right? And he's out there making a bunch
Let's
of
say you're in
ruckus.
Seattle.
If you're where Cory lives,
Yeah, sounds about right. Probably not. We're not correct. Anyway, no one's judging here.
you want to stop him at the sidewalk. You don't want him in your yard. You don't want him coming through your front door, right? You're going to stop him right there and say, hey, get the hell out of here. I want to do the same effect with the bull, right? I want to get close enough to where when he finally bugles, I'm going to bugle, but I'm going to be right there. I wanted him to be like, oh, I'm a threat. We're not leaving. I'm going to just stop him right at this. I'm going to stop him at the sidewalk. He's going to run out here and either wet my ass or scare me off or something, right?
Yeah. When you start with those cow calls, when you're in close, I mean, do you kind of just throw those cow calls out there and just test him out, see what he's into? I mean, maybe he's going to come in just to a cow call, and do you kind of let him bugle and then amplify it with a bugle yourself, or do you ever just like let the cow call do its thing?
I've kind of done the cow call do its thing before, and the problem with that for me a lot of time has been they get a little bit sus, right? They're like, oh, there's a cow over there. I'm going to walk over here and kind of dip low, and I'm going to come down here and get the wind and check her out, and then come up and then make sure there's some other bulls over there. But I'm going to go down here and get below her and smell her, downwind, and then kind of move up and then push her back up towards where the rest of the cows are at. And I found that they come in a lot more on pins and needles if I'm just cow calling, to where whenever he bugles, I just hammer him with a nasty challenge bugle. They get super defensive. Like they'll like drop their defenses. Like, oh, it's go time. It's fight.
Yeah, that's good tip. Good stuff. Yeah.
I'm ready to go. So obviously like you call a lot. What do you say to like, nowadays you hear a lot of people saying like these new age elk, they're getting call shy. It's because people like us are out there calling too much and it's educating the elk.
These millennial bulls, they've seen it all.
Do you believe in that?
I believe in that. Yeah, there's definitely a level of truth to that. I feel like the better your calls sound, the more luck you're going to have. 2020 in Idaho, for instance, cameraman Dusty and I rear off down in the crap hole away from the road, down off this nasty stuff, and we were going back and forth this bull, and he was coming. And all of a sudden, we heard this little tooty fluty bugle up on the hill.
What do you call that?
Doug Flutie.
Okay, just making sure we're talking about the same person.
Yeah. And that bull shut up. He quit bugling. And then the dude, he blew his call 2 or 3 more times. Hit his hoochie mom a couple times. Nothing.
So you're saying they can tell like if it's a shitty call.
They can tell if it's a shitty call, yeah. And then I waited 30 minutes. I didn't, after the last time I heard that guy call, and I called, bam, game on again. So it's realistic. What we will say, you don't have to sound perfect to call an elk, but I will say it helps to sound authentic.
Yeah.
So what's authentic? Authentic doesn't mean that you have the best contest bugle in the world, but maybe you sound, you're putting a lot of emotion into it. You're not blowing that call just like those 3 notes, over and over. It maybe sounds like a scalded hog or something when you blow your tube, but sometimes that works great. My brother and I first started bow hunting together, then he sucked bad. He hates it when I tell this. He gets so mad. It sounds, he would sound like Lance.
He's an
Lance,
accountant
he would sound like you stomped on a rabbit and then kicked a chihuahua. That's what his bugle and chuckle sounded. But for whatever reason, man, it would make bulls mad. They were just like,
I hated
oh, they're like, everybody wants to pick on the dummy, I guess, right? So they would come right in. But I think it was the intensity that he called with, that really set him apart. But like you say, I've heard some pretty nasty sounding elks. Like, is that an elk or what?
Yeah.
Or is that a jackass or like a donkey over there?
Yeah.
Making a weird noise. So
Yeah, so it might be like a strategy for not super proficient with your elk call. And like it as you're going out there, like maybe not to call a shit ton because you might be scaring the elk.
right.
And
Right.
once you kind of get better, work into it, you actually sound more like an elk.
Mhm.
Call more.
Yep.
Or mix it up.
Yeah.
I mean, don't just think it has to be that 2 or 3 note bugle. Try the other sounds. First, but don't because I mean, there's so many different aspects. Like if we think like Dirk would say it's over here, but if you were an elk doesn't necessarily like walk in a straight line.
Mhm.
They like mill around, and they kind of go back. I mean, if you've had a chance to just observe that, and it just takes a lot longer than you think it's should because we're very like, oh, get to the top of the mountain, get to the ridge, and you're going that fast path there, A to B, where an elk is very
Yeah.
non,
meander.
yeah, they're just not in the same mindset that we are. They're
Mhm.
smelling stuff, looking at stuff.
Yeah, every time I think Tucko, I got to beat on where they're headed.
Yeah.
Nope, we're
Yeah.
going somewhere else. So
Yeah.
they can definitely meander.
It's nice to be in reinforced though and hear those bugles.
For sure.
That
Oh,
feels
man.
so good. Like every time you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah,
I'm like that crack addict.
I know,
gotta
I
hear
know,
it.
I know.
I want to hear it.
We're all reformed elk crack
I want
addicts
to
over
hear
here.
that bugle. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing like it. What do you say to? I mean, I hear a lot of talk, and I'm probably part of that team. That might say that like if you want to kill a really big bull, a herd bull, maybe they can't be called in. I mean, my own personal success, I've had a lot more success not calling a lot at all, and a lot of it's just because I'm not as proficient as it should be. With a call, I'd probably feel a lot more confident and probably have done better had I put more practice into it. But a lot of the success I've had is that midday madness. But a lot of it's just been, the bulls have been fired up. I've trailed them and trailed them and trailed them to a point to where they're kind of slowed up for their bed. And I've maybe thrown out a cow call or one simple bugle, and that bull was, like, oh, I'm just headed to bed, or I'm just getting up out of bed. I'm going to go back and check that out. But I mean, what do you say to people that say you can't kill a herd bull, you can't call a herd bull with a bugle or a cow call?
Right. Well, first off, I'll probably say the guys that spot and stock and don't call it all are probably going to kill the biggest bulls all the time. Just because, I don't know, those guys that are successful at it, they're just good hunters.
Yeah, there's guys that are getting dang good at it.
Really good hunters. And they've got that craft. They know what to do. So I think they'll probably, overall, I think those guys will probably kill bigger bulls. But
Fewer encounters, I would say for
encounters,
sure.
and maybe not as much fun and adrenaline, but I do know, when you get snuck in on something, it is a pretty intense, like adrenaline feeling to it, but different than calling. But as far as calling in herd bulls, yeah, it's definitely doable. I've called in several over the years. For me or other guys. And for instance, in 2020, everybody has advice when you go to New Mexico elk hunting, right?
I hope so.
When you go to New Mexico, what you want to do, put your bugles away and only cow call.
Yeah.
And then there's the guys that say, well, if you're going to cow call, just use an open reed cow call. They love it. Other guys are saying, don't call at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what I found in New Mexico is all the advice where people say always is always wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It's elk hunting, right? You just never know. You just need to learn to adapt. But what I will say is, 2020, we could see this big bull walking across this hillside. He had one cow, and I was cow calling him. He kind of bugle and not really look our way. He was walking along with that cow, and he's about ready to walk out of her life. And I hit him with the biggest, nastiest bugle I could muster, and he just stopped dead in his tracks. He was probably a couple hundred yards across this big ravine. Stopped dead in his tracks, turned around and just stared at us. And and I hit him with another one, and he just cut loose, and here he came.
Huh.
Left his cow,
Yeah.
came all the way across there on a beeline, came all the way up there. And the way the sun was and the way we're set up on this kind of the crown of the top of the hill there, you probably know this, you've probably seen it. A lot of times bulls will come in just below that crown,
Yep.
and that way they can peek up and see what's up there, but never exposing themselves.
Yep.
And for me to stand in the right spot to get a shot, it would have been completely exposed out in the bright sun. So I'm like, I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna stand right here in this little shady spot behind this juniper, and just hope he takes a little bit higher line. Well, he didn't. He came in right below there, and there was a bunch of crap in the way, and I couldn't shoot through it. But giant bull. Well, giant for that trip.
Sure.
He was no real true giant. But anyway, he come up there, looked around, didn't see no elk, boom, gone. But he kept bugling, so we lit in right after him. I doubled my efforts. I bugled so much, I literally got a migraine headache within that 30 minutes. So we charged across that ravine. He went across, topped over the other side. As soon as we topped up on that side, we put Jason in front. I kept on just hammering with his bugle. And all of a sudden, I could still hear him bugle, but then I heard a different bull bugle, like right there. I'm like, oh, there's a different bull. All of a sudden, this other bull comes in, a bigger one.
Right.
Whack, he shoots out. Herd bull like a 330. Right?
Sure.
And so you can't call him in.
Yeah.
But I will say, you have to catch him on the right day sometimes. Some days you can do whatever you want till the cow come home. They're not going to come in. But if you catch him on the right day, you're there on the right day.
Yeah.
Definitely can call him.
Just situational.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends on the day and the bull and how he's feeling.
We'd been messing with those bulls for a couple of days before that, and had chased them around. But whatever we did that day, I think we just completely just put away the cow calls.
Yeah.
Just started hammering them with big bugles, and that's what did it.
Do you guys like hunting as far as dates? I mean, early season, preseason, first part of September, middle of September, end of September. What's your go-to? What's your favorite? Do you adapt your techniques, your calling techniques, depending on the time of September you're out there?
I kind of like the further north I go, the later in the season I like to hunt.
Okay.
The further south I like to go, as far as the northwestern states, like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. I like South Idaho, Wyoming, some of Montana, maybe that earlier part of the season, maybe the second week of September.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the season, like the North Idaho, I'm going to go the last week of September. New Mexico, we've hunted that second season the last couple of years. There's been a lot of bugling, but I haven't hunted the first season, so I don't know what to compare it to down there. It may be great. So
Right.
I know Jason hunted last year, the first season down there, and they had a fantastic bunch of calling. So
As far as calling goes, you pretty much use the same method.
same method, same playbook.
If it's September, you're just kind of going elk hunting and sticking with the playbook.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I got a couple elk tags this year. If you're just you're bored. I'm sure
Oh,
you're
yeah.
bored.
Yeah, how many times you get asked?
I bet all the time. Hey, can you come call for me?
Hey, I need you to go call.
Well, when Cory's not saying it, everybody else says.
Yeah, I bet that happens a lot. Get called in for favors.
Yeah.
What's your go-to call setup? You're the Maverick guy, aren't you?
Maverick.
That's my favorite.
Diaphragm. Yeah, I love that call.
Me too.
When I helped Phelps design that thing, that I was super selfish. I'm like, I'm only building this for me. I wanted to be able to do all the stuff that I love the best, And he built me, I don't know, like 100 diaphragms with all these different thicknesses of latex, different stretches of latex, and I got it narrowed down to that thickness of latex that the Mavericks built on. But then there was all these different colors of that latex. And the black latex, it performed differently than the natural latex did. And then the green latex performed differently than all those others. And that green, at that right stretch, man, it would just do everything I wanted to do. I could do all sorts. I had all these little different bugles that I would have a hard time with brand X or whatever. I couldn't get him to do it perfectly every time. And this thing every time was just flawless. I'm like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's gonna buy this thing or not, but I don't care. I mean, at least I got what I like, right? And and it's been our top seller. So
They buy it for sure.
Corey, is an objective opinion. What's your favorite call?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
you get to use all of them.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think I use all. That's the I have probably two that are my go-to. I like the black ant. That's I tend to push people that for beginners. It's really easy to make sounds. That's the one I use to call my wife's bull in with, cow sound wise. And then for bugles, I like the pitch black too. That works really well for me. I do like to throw some love to the Smith call. It's one of our signature series. It's a purple call. It's I would say it's a little more on the advanced side. Most people don't use that call, but mostly because when we first came out with it was a double latex, so people tend to have it get really blow really hard to get sounds out of it. We've redesigned it since came out with it, and now I think people tried it once and then they didn't like it. Now they're not going to try it again. But that's another good call that works really well.
Especially if you want mature cow calls, that thing will make like the richest, fullest tone, like mature cow call you've ever heard. It's like really good. Now to bugle with it, it takes a set of gorilla lungs to make that thing rip. It's
I think that I don't know if I have gorilla lungs, but maybe it's just one of those things that I feel like I don't have to. I don't try to finesse it. I'm not trying to do a lot of things with. It's just I'm giving it my all. I don't think
it's basically a workhorse.
Yeah, I think so, and it does. The latex holds up really well. You get a lot of use out of it. People think that some folks think that our calls should hold up for season after season or whatnot, and so you know that it does last. And the same with our pitch black series. They do. They're really durable too. So those are kind of my three. Like the ant black and the purple, it's the Smith call, and then our pitch black, it's yellow with black latex. So really, really great calls.
Dirk, do you take any other calls with you besides the Maverick?
Just the Maverick.
Just the Maverick.
Just the Maverick.
It'll solve all your problems.
Did you use the
Dog
same
ran
one?
away.
Maverick.
Wife left.
You've never thrown one of Jason's pink calls in just to give it a go?
Oh wow!
No?
Oh man!
Stand up. I blow too hard.
Yeah,
I blow too
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a little lighter
they
latex.
do. Yeah.
And so I overblow them. I mean, it's a good call, but for me, the way how hard I blow, whenever, especially when I call on bulls, I just get stupid. Like I don't try to finesse anything, and I would blow out that call. But
Yeah, same here.
Interesting.
How many diaphragm calls do you guys make?
I think there's 11
I
different.
say
types.
11. Yeah, not including the minis that we added.
And then there's we build a whole bunch of flat ones too. And I don't
A lot
know.
of
There's
9.
I'm always like, why do we even build flat frame elk
Yeah.
calls anymore? Nobody
No, I
blows
think-
those, but we sell
You
it.
guys buy it.
Boatload of those.
The flat one just doesn't have the
Yeah,
things
the
like fit
dome.
the
Little
little
amp.
Doesn't
Yeah.
have to have frame. Yeah.
screws.
They are. They're a little more tricky.
Yeah.
They, as far as like placement, you have to be very specific where you put it in your mouth, and you have to blow it differently than you do the others. But some guys just have maybe a really flat roof mouth where they can't accept that dome. It digs into an inch or whatever. Or maybe they're just like old school. That's what they learned on, and they're not. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right? They just want to go with what they know.
You guys probably get a lot of calls, customers wondering like, okay, I'm a newbie, brand new, never blew a call before. I mean, what's your guidance to help somebody that's brand new, never used a reed?
Just as far as like which ones to use, or just start.
Yeah, just. I mean, tomorrow I think we're gonna do some more stuff on how you get started with it. But as far as calls, I mean, what calls do you recommend to a brand new caller?
Yeah, that's definitely the number one question. So we have kind of like 3 go-to. We have the gray and the black and the green. Those are our go-tos as far as really being. You just want people to start making sounds. Like, it's just not. We're not worried about what the sound is necessarily, but just making those sounds and then learning how that progression, right? Low to high, high to low, kind of working through that progression to get sounds, and then putting that time. We talked about the time, like what is a decent amount of time. I mean, if you're doing the 10 minutes driving in the garage after work or whatever you have time for, start with that. Be realistic. It's going to take just a minute. Once you have, if I get a caller that, let's say they're from the turkey world, right? They're coming out west and they want to hunt and they want a good start, but they're familiar with the turkey diaphragms, and so they know how to make sounds. They're familiar with it in their mouth. So that's a really good starting point. We get a lot of calls from those guys, and that's now you're at that point. But the difference with turkey is, you could get away with a little bit more movement. You're not you're not trying to make a very like specific sound as far as making specific sounds, but I mean, you're keeping it in one spot and you're doing high to low, and you're emoting, necessarily putting some emotion to it, and feel too. And so just getting to those points and being realistic, like, hey, you're making sounds now, and then now watch the videos, learn from elk, and then try and do it like being repeatable, pull it out of your mouth. That'll have it full of slobber. Give yourself, a chance, and then also have a good call care, right? You can't just, you leave it on your dash. It's another thing too. It's going to deteriorate in the sun. Yeah, all those things.
Especially out in Vegas.
Oh yeah,
It will be,
maybe even
it'll be tiny.
Yeah, I mean, and then you talk about it too, externals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good go-to call for guys that are, just, they might not have the time, to put into it, or even the, just the effort, right? They just wanted something simple. I can make sounds. There's no real learning curve there. So that's a really good starting point to be able to, go out in the woods and have a good, some confidence. Maybe it's a rifle hunter that isn't going to necessarily work during the rut as much, but they want to have something, maybe stop something, get that last look. And you can do that with a good external call.
Do you ever use an easy estrus?
Yeah,
You
I do.
You take one with you?
I do. Yep. I have one in my little call pouch on the side there.
He's got his own
And,
easy.
yeah, it's called the Double D.
Oh, nice.
Durham.
Sure.
The Mini X.
Yeah, the Mini XD.
We're not going to get there.
So, and I say, for me, this has been my experience with external reads. They work really well 10% of the time. The rest of the time, they work fine. But they don't.
I mean,
What?
let me think about
So
that.
90% of the time, they don't work any better than a normal diaphragm.
Okay.
But like on there's that 10% of the time where I've been calling to a bull with a diaphragm, and he's just kind of replying just halfway, half-assed, and I'll hit him with that external, and I don't know if I sound like Betty Lou from last year or what, but they just fire up.
They like it.
They like it, and they're coming, right?
Yeah.
I wish that was 50-50, like 50% of the time it was just like a game changer. But from my experience, it's about 10%. But I do know, I talk to a lot of guys, and they have a lot more luck, a lot more often, like having it kind of sway the odds in their favor by blowing an open read. So I never discounted. My brother, it's funny, my brother to this day, he hunted with me last year, and I pull it out, and I could just see his eyes roll. I could just see the eye roll because he thinks it sounds. They don't sound like it. They sound ridiculous, right? And they're elky, but I'll get to blowing on that thing, and I can just see him like. But when the bull starts like piping off, really, picking up the pace a little bit, he's just like, what? So yeah, it's definitely another tool in the toolbox. So I will use one of those and a Maverick.
Nice. I have a bad habit of like leaving elk calls all over the woods. I leave one. I think I left an easy estrus in Colorado last time we hunted.
I always had to bring like 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I left,
good idea,
left a bugle on one hill.
Everybody should buy at least 3 of them.
One time we lost one in Wyoming,
Yeah,
elk hunting,
I left a
bugle
bugle.
tube across this awful canyon that we weren't going back to.
I think
For some reason I brought a water bottle. I didn't bring an analogy, just like a water bottle from
Maverick.
Glacier Rain, one of those water bottles.
Yeah.
We just cut it in half. He was just bugling out of the.
We almost killed the bull that night out of a water bottle for a bugle too.
It worked.
It was close.
It sounded weird,
It sounded really weird.
but it did work for what we had.
Yeah, we did get a bull fired up. He was just right there before dark.
Dang it.
Yeah,
I think I watched that video.
Yeah,
So, I mean, this has been
Yeah.
around for a minute, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We almost called that bull in. I mean, he got real hot. I don't know if it was. I don't know. He must have been really hurting for company.
So I was being authentic behind it.
Exactly.
I was being authentic. I was really putting effort in. I was blowing on that thing so hard.
You had to.
Had to.
Well, awesome. We appreciate you guys coming down.
Yep.
We've got a full day for you tomorrow as
Perfect.
well. Put you back to work. I think we're gonna go grab some dinner if you guys are around.
Yeah,
We'll go grab
absolutely.
some.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
But we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Hanging out. It's getting a little hot in here, so we gotta get out.
It's authentic. We get the authentic
That's right.
heat from the tent and the campfire smell, so that's good.
That's it.
September can't get here soon enough.
That's right.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. If you guys got questions, drop them in the comments below, or you can hit Dirk up directly, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You get a fair amount of those.
Usually gets back real
You
quick.
can find
too.
me on social, the
Yeah.
Bugler,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Bugler, one word.
Yep.
Or, I mean, if you want to ask, you want to talk Colin, you can email me. It's Dirk, D-I-R-K, at PhelpsGameCalls.com.
Nice.
And then info at Phelps Game Calls too.
If you want to complain,
Yeah.
send him a customer complaint,
Hey,
info at PhelpsGameCalls.
You know, the irony of all that is like we hardly get any complaints. I mean, very few. I mean, we're super lucky. I mean, people really love our calls. And we have really awesome, customers. So, I mean, of all the products you can make, I mean, Elk calls and just how well our calls work, we're super lucky when it comes to that.
You do. You guys have a great brand. You have a
Yeah,
great
so
thing
good.
going. You make great calls. So
Well,
I highly recommend them.
we love it.
Cool.
Hopefully everybody picks up a bunch of calls because they don't work unless you get them. Right, Dirk?
Start practice now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now's a great time. Absolutely.
Yes. September can't go quicker.
For sure.
We'll close out with that.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.